They told you the moon was harmless, a symbol of romance, of beauty, of calm nights. But what if everything you've ever believed about it was a lie? What if the glow you admire is nothing more than the mask of a prison, and the shadows it hides are filled with rituals so forbidden that even ancient civilizations tried to erase them? In this video, The Dark Side of the Moon, the forbidden rituals of astral entities, you'll discover the secrets that priests, magicians, and secret societies kept locked away for centuries. Here's the paradox. The same light that inspires poets has been used as a gateway for dangerous occult rituals. The same silver glow that comforts lovers has been the stage for astral soul-devouring entities. And the same moon you've trusted to guide the tides may have been guiding something else. Your dreams, your fears, even your soul. Sounds unbelievable. That's exactly why it's dangerous, because the truth isn't found in the light, but in the shadows behind it. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you thought you knew about the moon. From forbidden lunar ceremonies that opened portals to rituals elites don't want you to know, to the terrifying idea that the moon itself is an astral machine designed to trap consciousness, you're going to see the night sky in a way you'll never forget. And once you've heard this, you'll never look at the moon the same way again. What if the moon, the very orb poets have sung about for centuries, wasn't what it seems? People look at it and see beauty, serenity, even romance. Yet behind that glowing surface there's something far darker. Ancient whispers speak of the dark side of the moon ritual, where moonlight isn't light at all but a reflection masking a hidden trap. Think of it like a mirror, beautiful on the outside but capable of hiding what lurks behind. It's unsettling to imagine that every time we gaze upward, we might be staring into a portal rather than a planet. That idea alone explains why many texts labeled it a moonlight astral trap. And really, hasn't humanity always been warned not to trust appearances? When you take a closer look, you notice how the moon doesn't produce light, it merely reflects. And reflection in occult philosophy is often linked with deception. It's like standing in front of a mirror and forgetting that the image is only a copy, not the real thing. In the same way, the moon may be reflecting more than sunlight. It might be reflecting energies that bind humanity to cycles of control. That's why certain traditions called it a hidden machine for lunar occult practices. This isn't about superstition. It's about questioning why so many cultures treated the moon not only as divine, but also as dangerous. What if this mirror hides the entrance to rituals of astral beings we were never meant to see? The idea may sound extreme, but consider how often humans have been drawn to forbidden light. Fire was once sacred and untouchable, yet people dared to steal it. Electricity, too, was feared at first, believed to carry spirits. The moon, however, has remained an enigma, always present yet never fully understood. Some occult texts describe the hidden side of the moon occult as a veil, a place where astral entities explain themselves not in words, but in visions. The mirror of the moon becomes then a gate, and gates don't exist unless there's something or someone behind them. Imagine sitting outside on a full moon night, feeling its glow touch your skin. For most, it's peaceful. For those who know the old ways, it's unsettling. They believed that under the full moon, demonic lunar rituals took place, rituals the elites don't want you to know. They claimed the light could open astral gateways of the moon, subtle doors where the soul becomes vulnerable. I've heard initiates describe moments when their thoughts weren't their own, as if astral soul-devouring entities whispered through the moon's silver beams. The beauty of the night sky can quickly transform into a prison you didn't realize you were stepping into. Think of myths where heroes were warned, never look too long at the forbidden. Perseus was told not to gaze at Medusa directly. Orpheus was told not to look back at Eurydice. The moon carries the same warning. To stare too deeply into it, to use it as part of forbidden lunar ceremonies, might awaken something that watches back. That's why initiates spoke of black magic under the moon, where chance aligned with its phases could draw powers and dangers into the human realm. The catch is, once the connection is made, it cannot easily be undone. That's the hidden danger of these dangerous occult rituals. There's also a psychological trick here. Humans crave patterns, and the moon is the ultimate pattern. Waxing, waning, disappearing, returning, it feels eternal. Ancient societies projected their hopes and fears onto it. weaving stories that became ancient moon worship secrets. But secrets have shadows, and those shadows tell of astral possession rituals, of nights when the moon wasn't a friend, but a predator. It's like trusting a stranger's smile without realizing their intentions. The glow may soothe you, but the hidden face might hunger for something else entirely. Some claim the moon doesn't just influence tides, but human emotions. Think of how many people blame sleepless nights or erratic moods on a full moon. Science explains part of it, but not all. Could it be that during those nights, subtle energies open cracks for astral entities explained in old grimoires? People report strange dreams, sudden fears, and feelings of being watched. These aren't isolated. Across cultures, the testimony is strikingly similar. Perhaps these side effects are signs of the moon and forbidden gnosis at work, clues that what we see is just the mask of something vast and hidden. And here's where the question lingers like an echo. If the moon is a mirror, then what exactly is it reflecting? Is it only sunlight, or is it the presence of lunar cults and secret societies who've been using it as a stage for mystical moon rituals long before history was written? Think about that next time you feel its glow. Maybe it isn't just shining on you, it might be shining into you. And if that's true, what were the occult secrets of the moon that ancient civilizations knew, but we've forgotten? The next step is to dig into how those civilizations worshipped the moon, and why they saw it as more than just a celestial body. They say the earliest civilizations didn't just observe the moon, they listened to it. The Sumerians, for instance, treated the moon as a living deity, Inanna, whose glow carried not only beauty but also instruction. Their priests believed ancient moon worship secrets were encoded in its phases, with rituals performed at crescents, full moons, and eclipses. Egyptians, on the other hand, saw the moon as a reflection of Thoth's wisdom, a keeper of balance who could both heal and harm. The Greeks worshipped Selene and Hecate, deities tied to the night, mystery, and death. For them, forbidden moon rituals weren't superstition, but gateways to real encounters with forces unseen. When you realize how widespread this was, you begin to wonder, why did so many cultures agree the moon was more than rock and light? These practices weren't random festivals under the stars. They were structured, precise, and terrifyingly intentional. The Sumerians aligned temples with lunar cycles, believing that every shadow cast by moonlight was a message from beyond. Egyptians synchronized lunar occult practices with the Nile's floods, trusting the moon as both clock and oracle. And the Greeks, particularly those who followed Hecate, designed dangerous occult rituals involving crossroads, blood sacrifices, and invocations under the waning moon. It wasn't casual stargazing, it was a science of spirit, a discipline meant to open astral gateways of the moon. People risked their lives because they believed what lay behind that glow was worth the danger. You can almost picture it, a Sumerian high priest climbing a ziggurat at night, carrying a bowl of water that mirrored the moon. The water became a moonlight astral trap, pulling down visions from the sky into the liquid. In Greece, women devoted to Selene wore silver pendants as protective seals against astral soul-devouring entities. In Egypt, initiates used lunar calendars not only for farming, but also to determine nights when rituals of astral beings could be performed. These weren't just stories, they were instructions, practiced across generations. And each civilization swore that ignoring these rules meant inviting madness. It's tempting to dismiss these accounts as myth, but ask yourself, why were the stories consistent across cultures that never met? Why did they all agree the moon had a hidden side, a dangerous face? Even apocryphal texts later described demonic lunar rituals, saying elites preserved the knowledge while hiding it from common people. These rituals elites don't want you to know weren't fairy tales. They were systems of control. Imagine the power of commanding tides, emotions, and even dreams through the moon. That's what ancient rulers believed, and why they built entire cults around it. Look closer at Hecate, the goddess of magic in Greece. Her rites were performed at night, always under moonlight, with torches and offerings left at crossroads. People feared her because they believed she commanded astral possession rituals, where spirits entered human hosts through the lunar glow. Egyptians feared the nights of the dark moon, warning that hidden dangers of astral entities roamed freely without lunar light to mask them. And Sumerians, they believed every eclipse was a sign of black magic under the moon. rituals carried out by priest-kings who bargained with entities beyond human comprehension. These patterns show the moon was never neutral. It was always sacred, dangerous, or both. Even in personal accounts, echoes remain. Travelers in Greece described strange voices on nights of full moons near Hecate's shrines. Egyptian farmers spoke of vivid dreams guiding their planting seasons after mystical moon rituals. Some claimed those dreams weren't dreams at all, but instructions from astral entities explained as guardians, watchers, or parasites. And Sumerian tablets talk about rulers who disappeared during nights of blood moons, only to return speaking in tongues and delivering laws as if they had been dictated by invisible beings. Was this madness or contact with the occult philosophy of the moon? The more you follow these trails, the clearer it becomes. Ancient people didn't simply worship the moon, they engaged with it as if it were alive, aware, and capable of shaping destiny. They left behind warnings wrapped in myth, but also rituals preserved in secret for those bold enough to try. Which brings us to an even more unsettling thought. If civilization saw the moon as a goddess or a gate, could it actually be something more? What if it isn't just an object in the sky, but astral machinery designed for purposes we've only begun to grasp? Some philosophers once whispered, what if the moon isn't natural at all, but constructed? This wasn't just wild speculation. Ancient texts hint that the moon might be an instrument, a device hidden in plain sight. Think of it as astral technology, a machine that channels light not to illuminate, but to control. In this sense, the moon becomes more than stone. It becomes a mirror of power. Certain esoteric schools argued that the dark side of the moon ritual wasn't symbolic, but practical, a way of interacting with the gears of this cosmic engine. If that's true, then humanity has been living under a mechanism designed to shape behavior, emotions, even thought itself. The idea may sound impossible, yet look at its effects. The moon controls tides with precision, moving entire oceans with silent authority. If it can command the seas, why couldn't it also influence human minds and dreams? Occultists believed this was exactly the case. They said the moon acted as a transmitter, bouncing energies back into Earth like a psychic satellite. That's why lunar occult practices always revolved around timing, as if rituals were ways of syncing with the machine's cycles. This is why ancient moon worship secrets spoke of phases not as poetry, but as gears turning within the device of the sky. Some Gnostic interpretations go even further, claiming the moon was placed deliberately as part of a prison system. According to them, its true purpose was to filter the soul's energy, capturing fragments each time someone died. The process became known as part of astral possession rituals, with the moon acting as both magnet and jailer. Imagine the horror of realizing your consciousness might be recycled through a machine above your head. For those who practiced forbidden lunar ceremonies, this wasn't myth, it was reality. They warned never to attempt a moonlight astral trap without protection, because the machine could lock a soul indefinitely in cycles of rebirth. Consider also the countless myths of mirrors and reflections. The moon is nothing if not the ultimate cosmic mirror, but mirrors distort, they capture, and they trap. Initiates believed the moon's light was capable of bending psychic vibrations, shaping human perception into illusions. This is why they linked it with hidden dangers of astral entities. They saw it as a stage where rituals of astral beings were projected like shadows on a wall. The ancient Greeks compared the moon to a mask, while Gnostics compared it to a machine's screen, playing images to keep humanity distracted. Either way, the point is clear. What we see may not be what exists. And what about conspiracies? Even today, theories persist that the moon rings hollow, that it doesn't behave like a typical celestial body. Some researchers note its unusual orbit, others its strange seismic vibrations. To occult philosophers, these weren't oddities, they were clues. They argued that the occult philosophy of the moon reveals a hidden architecture, one maintained by astral soul-devouring entities. These entities, according to legend, operate through the moon's mechanisms, feeding on psychic energy. That's why warnings speak of never perform this moon ritual, not because the ritual is fake, but because it works, and it connects you to something you cannot control. Stories from mystics reinforce the claim. I once heard of a practitioner who performed chants under a blood moon, aligning with what he believed was a sacred vibration. He reported being pulled into visions of cogs, wheels, and endless cycles, as though inside the heart of a great celestial device. Others have described dreams where the moon opened like a door, showing vast machinery behind its light. These accounts, whether symbolic or real, echo the theme of astral gateways of the moon. They hint at something mechanical, something functional, lurking beneath the glowing face. And here's where the enigma deepens. If the moon is indeed astral machinery, then who or what built it? Was it designed by gods, by ancient civilizations lost to time, or by lunar cults and secret societies that knew how to manipulate it? Or perhaps it was placed by astral entities explained in myth, beings who needed humanity not as companions, but as fuel. Whatever the case, it means the moon isn't just watching us, it's working on us. And that leads directly into the next question. What kinds of rituals did the ancients dare to perform to tap into its machinery? And why were those rituals forbidden in the first place? Imagine the night of a lunar eclipse in ancient times. The sky turns red, shadows devour the familiar glow, and silence spreads across the land. For most, fear froze their hearts. For a chosen few, it was the moment to act. Cults gathered in secret, their chants echoing like vibrations, pulling open cracks in the sky. These ceremonies weren't harmless prayers, they were forbidden lunar ceremonies, crafted to unlock the hidden side of the moon occult. They believed the eclipse turned the moon into a perfect mirror, allowing contact with astral soul-devouring entities. The warnings were clear. Never perform this moon ritual unless you were ready to risk everything, even your soul. During these nights, offerings weren't symbolic, they were visceral. Blood sacrifices, animal and sometimes human, were poured under moonlight to awaken the hunger of the unseen. Cultists swore that only through such acts could they pierce the veil of the astral gateways of the moon. To them, it was a transaction, life for knowledge, sacrifice for power. These dangerous occult rituals were preserved not in mainstream temples, but in hidden sects. That's why many texts later called them rituals elites don't want you to know. Knowledge of this magnitude, they said, was meant only for rulers and magi who could harness the moon as machinery of control. The most feared nights were the dark moons, when the lunar light vanished completely. Imagine the terror of standing under an empty sky. No light, no reflection, just the abyss. Cults believed these nights opened the strongest moonlight astral trap, because the absence of light meant the machine was off guard, raw, exposed. Rituals performed then often sought possession, calling for entities beyond the moon to inhabit the bodies of initiates. It wasn't uncommon for participants to claim sudden strength, knowledge of forgotten languages, or visions of machinery turning inside the heavens, but those gifts often came with curses, madness, obsession, or sudden death. Consider the rites of Hecate's followers in Greece. They gathered at crossroads under waning moons, lighting torches as symbols of stolen fire. They left offerings of bread, honey, and blood, while reciting invocations that scholars later labeled as demonic lunar rituals. In Egypt, ceremonies aligned with lunar eclipses were conducted to open paths for rituals of astral beings, ensuring rulers received visions from beyond. Even the Sumerians left inscriptions warning against ceremonies during blood moons, describing how kings vanished into shadows, returning as if possessed by astral entities explained in their tablets. These stories weren't isolated myths. They were blueprints for contact with forbidden forces. The danger wasn't only in the act, but in the aftermath. Participants often reported being haunted in dreams, their nights filled with shadows crawling into their minds. They described mirrors breaking, reflections speaking back, or even being pulled into endless corridors of light and darkness. These accounts highlight why ancient masters spoke of the hidden dangers of astral entities. Once a portal was opened, the connection remained like a scar on the soul. This is why grimoires warned against black magic under the moon, because the ritual didn't end when the chanting stopped. It lingered, feeding, demanding more. And here's where it becomes unsettling. Some of these practices have survived. Whispers tell of modern sects performing mystical moon rituals during eclipses, using symbols forgotten by mainstream religion but preserved in secret circles. They mix chants from Sumer, hymns to Hecate, and Egyptian sigils into hybrid forbidden moon rituals. Their goal remains the same as it was thousands of years ago, to open contact with astral possession rituals and gain access to the energy behind the veil. The risk hasn't changed either. Those who dare step into these ceremonies claim the experience is intoxicating, but few walk away unchanged. So the question becomes, why would anyone risk it? Why offer blood, risk madness, or open doors that should remain closed? The answer lies in the testimonies of those who swore they saw the other side. They spoke of visions of beings without form, of machinery turning in silence, of whispers promising knowledge beyond comprehension. Whether illusion or truth, their words point to one thing: encounters with the very beings hidden in moonlight. And that takes us directly into the next mystery. What happened to those who claimed to meet these astral entities, explained during their rituals? When ancient magicians spoke of their lunar practices, they didn't describe empty gestures. They spoke of encounters. They claimed that under certain alignments, when the moon stood in shadow or crimson glow, they could pierce the veil and witness what they called entities beyond the moon. These beings were not gods, not angels, not demons in the traditional sense, but something stranger. Witnesses described them as formless presences, shifting shapes, almost like living reflections. To outsiders, these tales sounded like madness, yet for initiates, they were evidence that the forbidden moon rituals opened actual gateways. The moon wasn't just background, it was the stage for contact with the forbidden. One occultist once described an experience during a blood moon, claiming he saw a face that was not a face, staring through the night sky. His words match what later grimoires warned about. The moonlight astral trap didn't just reflect light, it reflected consciousness back into the summoner. Some initiates reported that the beings seemed vampiric, feeding not on flesh, but on energy. They were later classified as astral soul-devouring entities, a term that became common among secret sects. Think about it. If something doesn't need your body, but your essence, it can haunt you in dreams, in thoughts, in fears. And the moon is the perfect delivery system. Magicians from different lands reported eerily similar encounters. Sumerians described winged shadows that spoke in tones like vibrating metal. Egyptians claimed to hear the voices of their dead ancestors, but distorted, hollow, like echoes bouncing inside a cavern. Greeks, especially Hecate's devotees, said the beings appeared at crossroads, half human, half animal, shifting endlessly. These accounts fueled the belief that rituals of astral beings were not hallucinations, but dialogues with another order of existence. And each testimony repeated the same warning: never perform this moon ritual without protection, because once the gate opens, it never truly closes. There are modern accounts too, though whispered cautiously. Some practitioners in contemporary occult circles claim to have revived forbidden lunar ceremonies. They speak of sensations of being observed, even before the ritual begins. During the chanting, mirrors crack, flames distort, and shadows twist unnaturally. Afterward, many describe dreams of staircases leading into infinite darkness, guided by faceless beings. These experiences echo what was recorded thousands of years ago, suggesting continuity. The encounters haven't disappeared, they've adapted. They remain woven into the hidden thread of lunar cults and secret societies, where the bravest, or most reckless, seek answers. A curious pattern appears in these reports. The entities never arrive as complete forms. They seem fragmented, broken, like pieces of a greater whole leaking through. Some occultists suggest this is due to the moon itself acting as a filter. The occult philosophy of the moon portrays it as a veil, a machine that distorts whatever passes through. Imagine looking at a clear lake, then at your reflection rippling in the water. That distortion is what these entities are like when summoned. It also explains why encounters are often terrifying. We're not seeing them as they are, but as fragments bent by lunar interference. Personal stories bring these ideas closer to home. I once heard about a woman who practiced mystical moon rituals every new moon. At first, she claimed the rituals gave her clarity, prophetic dreams, and bursts of energy. But with time, she began hearing whispers in her sleep. Whispers she swore came from astral entities explained in old manuscripts. She stopped, but the voices didn't. This illustrates the hidden dangers of astral entities. Once acknowledged, they don't leave. They latch on, feeding quietly like shadows that no longer need night to survive. And so we return to the unsettling truth. These encounters are not passive visions, but interactions that change the human who dares to experience them. They can grant knowledge, yes, but at the cost of peace, sanity, and sometimes the soul itself. It leads us to ask, what is the real price of invoking such forces? If rituals can indeed summon demonic lunar rituals and call forth astral possession rituals, then what toll does it exact on the human spirit? This opens the door to the next question. What happens after the encounter? When the glow fades and the price must be paid, those who dared to call upon the moon's hidden face often discovered too late that nothing came without cost. The stories speak of vitality drained from their bodies, as if invisible hands had stolen the very fire of life. Some described sudden aging, hair turning white overnight, or illnesses that no healer could cure. Practitioners warned that this was the tax of dangerous occult rituals, an exchange between human energy and astral soul-devouring entities. To open a portal was to invite hunger, and hunger always demands to be fed. This is why the ancients constantly repeated, never perform this moon ritual unless you are prepared to lose what you cannot replace. Another price came in the form of obsession. Once someone had seen the veil part, they couldn't forget it. Sleep became haunted by shadows, mirrors whispered their names, and every full moon became an invitation. Think about addictions in everyday life, how one taste often pulls you back again and again. The same happened with forbidden moon rituals. The knowledge was intoxicating, and the danger addictive. I've heard initiates compare it to standing on the edge of a cliff, terrifying but irresistible. That's why texts warned about the moonlight astral trap. It doesn't just hold souls, it holds minds captive, luring them back to the same rituals. Dreams were another battlefield. Many accounts describe visions of staircases, corridors of mirrors, and entities feeding silently on emotions. People woke up exhausted, even if they had slept for hours. Ancient grimoires describe this as astral possession rituals, where entities entered through dreams to continue feeding on the practitioner. In modern terms, it's like malware. You open the wrong file once, and suddenly the system is corrupted. This is why mystics called it the hidden dangers of astral entities. Dreams became less about rest and more about survival, a nightly struggle against beings that refuse to let go. There are also psychological costs. Imagine feeling constantly watched, even in daylight. Practitioners reported paranoia, sudden fear of mirrors, or even fear of their own reflections. Some described seeing shadows standing behind them, even when they were alone. These symptoms match what ancient priests called the afterburn of black magic under the moon. It wasn't just superstition, it was the echo of rituals that linked the mind to entities beyond the moon. The price wasn't visible scars, but invisible ones. Minds fractured, spirits burdened, lives slowly collapsing under the weight of what was summoned. And yet, the most frightening cost was spiritual imprisonment. Many teachings insisted the moon functioned as a filter of souls, recycling them endlessly through rebirth. By invoking lunar forces, practitioners risked binding themselves tighter into the cycle. Instead of freedom, they courted captivity. This idea is central in the occult philosophy of the moon, where the glow acts not as a blessing, but as a prison light. Those who meddled with forbidden lunar ceremonies risked chaining their souls to cycles of return, becoming playthings of lunar cults and secret societies. What they sought as power became an eternal leash. I once came across the account of a modern practitioner who claimed to have performed mystical moon rituals for wealth and influence. At first, he succeeded. Opportunities opened, money flowed, and he felt untouchable. But soon he couldn't sleep without nightmares of faceless beings watching him. His health declined rapidly, and he confessed that his family began experiencing the same hauntings. This story reflects the ancient moon worship secrets. Gain is never free. The same forces that give also take, and they often take more than they give. The moon doesn't grant favors, it demands contracts. All of this leads us to a chilling realization. Invoking the moon isn't about beauty or mystery, it's about survival. The costs are not just personal but generational, rippling outward into families and communities. And so we must ask, if the price is so devastating, then why does the machine exist in the first place? Could it be that the moon itself was designed as a prison of souls, an astral filter to capture and recycle humanity endlessly? That's the question the next teachings force us to confront, whether the moon is not only dangerous during rituals, but a constant guardian of our afterlife itself. Gnostic traditions dared to say what most religions avoided. The moon is not simply a lamp in the sky, but a prison. According to their hidden teachings, it acts as a filter where souls are caught after death, stripped of memory, and recycled into new bodies. This cycle keeps humanity bound in ignorance, trapped in illusions. In their view, every full moon wasn't a symbol of beauty, it was a spotlight shining on our captivity. That's why they called it the Moonlight Astral Trap. And the rituals associated with it weren't paths to freedom. They were shackles disguised as knowledge, the essence of forbidden lunar ceremonies. Consider the testimony of ancient sects who believed the moon harvested astral energy. They described it as a machine that consumes fragments of the soul at every death, making sure no one escapes the endless wheel of reincarnation. To them, life was not progression but repetition, orchestrated by astral soul-devouring entities. The Sumerians hinted at this when they wrote of beings who fed on the dead. Egyptians warned against demonic lunar rituals performed to bind spirits to the earth. These weren't metaphors, they were survival manuals, teaching initiates how to slip past the astral gateways of the moon after death. Think about the symbolism of light and shadow. The sun gives, the moon reflects, but reflection can also distort, conceal, and trap. Gnostic philosophers insisted that the occult secrets of the moon were meant to keep humanity blind, reflecting false heavens to distract us from the truth. They said the moon wasn't a friend, but a guard. Its glow wasn't gentle, it was the spotlight of a warden. That's why they spoke of the occult philosophy of the moon as a prison theory. Under its glow, humanity feels awe, yet behind that awe lies captivity, a cage built from cycles we can't escape. There are chilling echoes of this idea in other cultures too. Tibetan mystics spoke of entities waiting at the moment of death, presenting illusions to lure the soul back into material existence. Some even claimed that the moon itself was the stage for these illusions. In Greece, Hecate's mysteries warned initiates not to follow false lights after death, clear warnings against the hidden dangers of astral entities. Meanwhile, secret societies whispered of lunar cults using rituals to control reincarnation itself. The pattern repeats. Across time, cultures sensed that the moon was tied not only to life, but to what happens beyond it. I recall reading an account from a mystic who claimed an out-of-body experience during a lunar eclipse. He described seeing a silver net descending from the moon, pulling spirits upward like fish caught in a cosmic net. He swore he felt himself dragged, almost absorbed, before a force intervened and freed him. His warning was clear: never perform this moon ritual without preparation, because the risk isn't just in life, but in what happens after death. Such testimonies may sound strange, but they align with centuries of warnings about black magic under the moon and its connection to the recycling of souls. What's fascinating is how this theme appears even in modern conspiracy theories. Some researchers suggest the moon's role as a prison is why elites continue to perform mystical moon rituals in secrecy. They believe the rituals give temporary freedom from the cycle, bargaining with the entities who manage it. That's why many say these are rituals elites don't want you to know. Imagine the power of escaping the cycle of birth and death while the masses remain trapped. The hidden side of the moon occult then becomes not just mystery, but strategy, an advantage only for those who dare risk the price. And so the question grows sharper. If the moon is indeed a prison of souls, then what texts could possibly have survived to warn us? Could ancient grimoires and forbidden manuscripts hold the keys to escaping its pull? That's the puzzle we face now. For some apocryphal writings didn't just describe rituals, they screamed warnings. They revealed forgotten symbols, codes that cautioned humanity about portals disguised as light. And that takes us directly to the next point: the warnings left behind in ancient texts. Reminders that not all knowledge is safe, and not all rituals are meant to be opened. Hidden within dusty libraries and forgotten monasteries are texts few were ever meant to read. These apocryphal manuscripts carried dire warnings about forbidden moon rituals, describing them not as pathways to enlightenment, but as traps. They spoke of sigils etched in silver, chants designed to summon astral entities explained as guardians of the lunar veil. To read them without guidance was to risk madness. To perform them was to invite bondage. Some grimoires were deliberately burned or locked away, which is why today they are labeled as rituals elites don't want you to know. The very act of erasing them was itself a warning, knowledge this dangerous wasn't meant for everyone. Take the example of medieval grimoires that survived only in fragments. One text, known as the Mirror of Selene, warned that the moon's light was a reflection of prisons not yet seen. Another manuscript spoke of astral possession rituals disguised as prayers, instructing initiates to guard their dreams from silver reflections. These writings described the moon as a double-faced entity, beauty above, devourer beneath, and woven throughout were constant reminders: never perform this moon ritual. Not because it wouldn't work, but because it would, and the result would be submission to astral soul-devouring entities. Some texts went further, offering symbols designed not to summon but to protect. These were circles carved with lunar phases, talismans of obsidian meant to repel the glow. The ancients understood that defense was as important as knowledge. They saw the hidden dangers of astral entities as inevitable once the moon was invoked. So they armed themselves with symbols and seals to block the pull of black magic under the moon. Even then, the warnings repeated. Protection could never last forever. The moon was relentless, and rituals were more dangerous than any human precaution could counter. In one remarkable passage from a suppressed scroll, a monk described his brothers chanting under an eclipse. He wrote that the shadows opened their mouths and swallowed the monastery in silence. Afterward, half of the order disappeared, never seen again. The survivor concluded that the ritual wasn't a pathway to God, but an astral gateway of the moon to something entirely different. His final words were etched with fear: "The moon remembers every voice." This illustrates why texts spoke not of power, but of survival. Rituals weren't blessings, they were sentences. What's striking is how consistent these warnings were across regions. Coptic manuscripts, Hebrew Apocrypha, and even fragments from Mesopotamian tablets all echoed the same refrain: beware the mystical moon rituals. They described dreams turning into chains, visions becoming prisons, and entities feeding silently. The repetition across time and culture suggests this wasn't coincidence, it was collective memory. Humanity has always sensed the occult secrets of the moon and its ties to demonic lunar rituals, and each culture found its own way of saying the same thing. The moon is not what it seems. Modern researchers who stumble upon these manuscripts often dismiss them as superstition, yet patterns emerge. The drawings of fragmented beings, wheels within wheels, and silver chains look eerily similar to reports of visions during forbidden lunar ceremonies. Could it be that what we call mythology was documentation? If so, these texts are not warnings against fantasy, but against repeating mistakes. They remind us that the occult philosophy of the moon has always carried a cost, and ignoring that cost has destroyed entire orders and sects. And so we're left with a haunting question. If so many ancient voices screamed warnings, then why did people keep performing these rituals? The answer may lie not in the texts themselves, but in the hunger that drove humans to risk everything. For behind every warning was also a promise: power, knowledge, contact with forces beyond. That hunger never died, and it explains why even today, seekers still reach for the forbidden, which leads us naturally to the next mystery: the eternal appetite of those very entities waiting behind the moon. Hungry for more than just devotion, they hunger for the soul itself. The ancients warned that the beings tied to the moon didn't crave offerings of bread or incense. They craved essence. These astral soul-devouring entities lived not on flesh, but on energy, siphoning fear, despair, and even the faint glow of human joy. That's why grimoires described them as parasites hidden within the moonlight astral trap. They didn't appear in their true form. Instead, they filtered through reflections, dreams, and rituals. Every time someone performed forbidden moon rituals, these beings feasted, whether the practitioner realized it or not. That eternal hunger explains why warnings shouted across centuries. The moon isn't passive, it's a banquet. Accounts from different cultures echo this hunger vividly. Sumerians spoke of beings with mouths stretching wider than their faces, consuming the breath of the dying. Egyptians described shadowy figures perched on the crescent moon, waiting to sip the ka, the life force, of those who called them. Greek mystics connected Hecate with rituals of astral beings who drained vitality through possession. These weren't metaphors to them. They were descriptions of encounters. That's why priests cautioned that dangerous occult rituals were never truly under human control. Once you opened the veil, You became prey in the feeding ground of entities beyond the moon. Modern testimonies reflect the same chilling truth. Practitioners who tried mystical moon rituals often reported sudden exhaustion, as if life itself was leaking from their skin. Others felt drained after nightmares, describing shadows sitting on their chest while they slept. These reports mirror ancient teachings about astral possession rituals. The beings didn't just feed and leave, they stayed, attaching themselves like invisible leeches. This is why occult teachers repeated endlessly, "Never perform this moon ritual," not because it fails, but because it succeeds, and what it summons doesn't want to leave. The hunger of these entities is eternal, because it's not physical, it's metaphysical. Flesh rots, but fear renews daily. Hope rises, then collapses into despair, creating fresh sustenance. The moon's glow, according to the occult philosophy of the moon, magnifies these emotions, amplifying them into waves that the entities consume. Think about how moods shift during full moons, or how many report chaotic dreams during lunar eclipses. To the initiated, this wasn't coincidence, it was evidence. The hidden dangers of astral entities are constant, because human emotion is a fountain they never stop drinking from. Some sects claimed the entities were not merely passive feeders, but hunters. They stirred wars, instigated chaos, and whispered into leaders' ears just to generate more energy to harvest. That's why certain lunar cults and secret societies performed demonic lunar rituals before battles. They believed blood spilled under moonlight didn't just stain the earth, it fed the beings waiting in shadow. Imagine the scale of such a feast. Thousands dying under a glowing moon, every soul screaming upward into the silver prison. This wasn't random cruelty, it was systematic harvesting, a cosmic economy of hunger. I once read a testimony from a modern occultist who described invoking lunar entities for knowledge. He admitted receiving visions of architecture impossible to describe, fractals, wheels, spirals turning endlessly, but the price was immediate. Within days, he grew pale, weak, and plagued by night terrors. He realized too late that his visions weren't gifts, they were bait. The entities had hooked him with forbidden gnosis, then drained him piece by piece. This is why the texts speak of the occult secrets of the moon. Knowledge can be fatal when offered by beings whose only motive is to feed. And so, we return to the ultimate reflection. If these entities hunger eternally, then every ritual, every offering, every gaze into the forbidden face of the moon becomes nourishment. Humanity has been both worshipper and prey, giving freely what should have been guarded. Which brings us to the final truth. The dark side of the moon isn't just a place in the sky. It is a mirror of consciousness itself, a state where rituals unlock doors that should remain closed. The question is no longer whether the hunger exists, it's whether we can resist it. And that leads us into the last reflection. What does it truly mean to face the hidden face of the moon? The final revelation whispers like an echo. The dark side of the moon is not simply geography, it's consciousness. It is the hidden mirror of the human soul, reflecting not light, but shadow. When practitioners speak of the forbidden moon rituals, they aren't just describing ceremonies under silver skies, they're describing journeys inward, where illusions collapse and hunger reveals itself. The moon becomes the stage where astral entities explained take form, feeding on the unguarded mind. And every ritual becomes a dialogue, not with gods, but with reflections of our deepest fears. That's why so many teachers warned, never perform this moon ritual, because it's not about the stars, it's about you. In this way, the moon is less a body in space and more a portal of perception. Its glow hides the occult secrets of the moon, but those secrets live within us too. To engage in dangerous occult rituals is to risk tearing away the mask that protects us from seeing the machinery behind existence. The ancients believed that in its shadows lay the astral gateways of the moon, doors opening into forbidden states of being. Crossing through wasn't about stepping into space, it was about stepping into a forbidden self. And once that step is taken, there is no guarantee of return. The imagery of the moon as prison is powerful because it speaks to cycles we live daily. Think about routines we can't escape, habits that repeat endlessly. Aren't they echoes of the lunar cults and secret societies that bound humanity to repetition? The occult philosophy of the moon taught that these cycles were spiritual chains, looping souls into patterns they could never break. Rituals became keys to glimpse beyond the pattern, but also chains that locked tighter. Every chant, every offering under moonlight fed not liberation, but captivity. In that sense, mystical moon rituals were paradoxes, promising freedom, delivering chains. And what of the entities? They remain present, invisible but near. Every culture described them differently, yet their appetite was always the same. They were the astral soul-devouring entities, eternal hunters, masking hunger beneath promises of power. Their voices were sweet, but their claws were silent. Ancient testimonies remind us that they were not guardians. They were parasites. That's why the texts on black magic under the moon stressed caution. To speak the wrong word was to invite a shadow that never leaves. Humanity became both witness and offering, trapped in a banquet that repeats endlessly. The symbolism of the hidden face of the moon teaches something deeper, that what we don't see controls us most. We admire its glow but forget its darkness. We celebrate its phases but ignore its silence. And it's in that silence where the hidden dangers of astral entities lurk. This is the paradox. The moon is beauty and terror, guide and jailer, mirror and mask. To confront it is to confront not just the cosmos, but the shadow within. Every occult philosophy of the moon reminds us of this duality. What shines before us often hides what devours behind. Personal accounts echo this same truth. I once spoke to a seeker who said that meditating under the full moon gave her visions of radiant temples and angelic voices, yet soon those same voices began to twist, demanding sacrifices of energy and devotion. She realized she was walking into a moonlight astral trap, seduced by beauty but bound by shadow. Her story mirrors countless others. The moon offers initiation, but its rites are rarely what they seem. That's why ancient grimoires insisted on discernment, knowing when light is real and when it's a mask, hiding entities beyond the moon. And so, the final reflection closes the circle. The dark side of the moon ritual is not merely about eclipses, chants, or offerings. It is about stepping into a forbidden state of awareness. To engage in these forbidden lunar ceremonies is to face truths humanity has long tried to bury, that the cosmos is alive, hungry, and watching. Yet, the question remains, why did the ancients risk it? Why did they leave behind warnings and instructions side by side? The answer may lie in paradox itself, because danger and knowledge have always walked hand in hand. And perhaps, to truly understand, we must now step back and hear the introduction, the key that sets the entire journey into motion. So now the question is yours to answer. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you simply admire the moon as you always have? Or will you remember that behind its glow hides the possibility of forbidden moon rituals and astral soul-devouring entities? Every phase, every shadow, every eclipse carries meaning, and those who ignore it risk being caught in the moonlight astral trap. Think about it. Have you ever felt drained after a full moon night? Have you ever had strange dreams that felt more real than waking life? Maybe you've already brushed against the hidden dangers of astral entities without realizing it. The ancients left warnings not to scare us, but to prepare us. Now that you know, what will you choose? To stay blind or to awaken? And here's the challenge. Don't just let this become another story you heard online. Reflect on it, talk about it, and pay attention to your own experiences. Have you ever sensed the moon pulling at your energy, or felt its shadow watching you? Share it in the comments. I want to know your story, because this isn't just history and it isn't just myth. These occult secrets of the moon are alive right now, shaping lives, shaping destinies, shaping souls. The question is, are you willing to look at the sky differently from this day forward? If you felt this opened your eyes, then subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. There's so much more hidden knowledge, forbidden wisdom, and dangerous truths waiting for you here. Don't let the elites and secret societies be the only ones holding these mysteries. The next revelation might change your life forever.